But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
What's up, faithful? Welcome to the 49er Faithful UK Live. As always, I'm your host, Paul Hope. And yes, faithful, football's back, baby. That's right. We have actual 49ers football to talk about as our 49ers travel to Music City to take on the Titans in a preseason matchup. Helping me to break it all down and much, much more, I'm sure. If you've seen our social media today, you will know there's maybe one or two pieces of news that may be broken later. But joining me today, I have two very special guests. First up, he has the most thankless job in sports entertainment, host of the 49er Faithful UK podcast. He has to keep me, Lee and Nadji in check, which is a thankless task. It is, of course, my good friend, the one, the only, Gareth Ellis.
Good evening, Paul. Nice to see you. Good evening, everybody else. It's not that thankless, Paul. You and Lee and Nadji have trained you up reasonably well over the last couple of years. Yeah, you're reasonably well behaved now. So
we try, but every now and again, Gareth, there's a rabbit hole that forms and we disappear down and you have to rein us back in. So it's always nice, buddy, for you to sit on the other side of the chair on a Wednesday night.
Totally.
So,
and looking forward to all the breaking news. I was out for much of the day, so I looked at my phone. It was like you have 56 messenger messages or something. Oh dear! I thought it was news about something else, about a trade or a contract signing, but no. So,
and those 56 messages were just me and Nadji begging Lee Gowland, who the suspense is there, Gareth. I did hype the show up to be two special guests, and I didn't announce the guests, and then Lee dropped a little post in our Facebook group this morning. And since then, Gareth, I can assure everybody who's watching, I have zero idea. But I was going to say our next guest really needs no introduction. Everybody's favourite president, the man with all the connections, the insider information at his fingertips. It is, of course, El Presidente, Lee Gowland's in the house.
Hey, fellas. How are you doing? What's been like your side of this story today?
Well, no different to me because my phone normally goes crazy anyway. But what's been frustrating is I've had nothing to tell anybody. So it's been a little bit like frustrating.
So first off, I only got the information at midnight last night. I was literally on the way to bed, just checked my emails and pop, there it was. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to be breaking today. But we'll get into that later on in the show.
Yes, we will. So, first order of business, chaps. As I said at the start of the show, we have actual football to talk about. We've waited months and months. We've been through the draft. We've been through training camp. We've been through the Brandon Aiyuk saga. Maybe not. But we have actual football to talk about. Now, I didn't watch it live. I don't think you watched it live, did you, Gareth?
No, didn't see it. I haven't seen almost anything of it, apart from the 2 touchdowns, I think. So
I managed to watch the first half live.
So over to you, Lee, because I didn't watch the game live. I have watched it back, and I have watched certain podcasts to get a handle of what's happened.
It was your typical preseason game. Unfortunately, we didn't get out of it injury-free. As you'll be aware, Ambry Thomas, broken wrist or broken arm. You have to wonder whether or not he's going to be on the roster. I mean, that's a big blow for him. However, having said that, I would have said Ambry Thomas was one of the cornerbacks where he was at risk anyway, alongside my guy, Sammy Womack. So maybe it's a good thing for Kyle to bring the roster down to where he wants it to be without actually upsetting anyone. Not that that'll bother him whatsoever. He's a professional head coach. But yeah, I mean, there's some really good players. So for me, the outstanding player of the game was Malik Mustafa. I know a lot of people, I know Nadji will probably be watching this back saying, well, what about all of Jordan Mason's runs? The fact that we've been talking about Mustafa and the way we expected him to hit and then he goes and puts that on tape in a preseason game, and it's exactly what we expected from him. He absolutely flattened that guy, and that was good to see. I mean, there was some standout performances from a few different players. Brandon Allen, I thought was excellent. I thought his receivers let him down a bit. They dropped very catchable balls indeed. Had they caught that, his stats would have been unbelievable. I thought he looked confident. He scanned the field. He picked out open receivers. He made some really difficult throws. Some throws where he had to get the ball right into the receiver's hands. And like I said, unfortunately, it's the first preseason game. There's a little bit of rust there, and there's a few drops that didn't help him out a bit. But it was good to have football back. I'm not really bothered about the results, if I'm honest. We lost the game. It's all about having a look at who you've got. Dominic Pooney. Wow. I think he's got a very realistic chance of being a starter come game one. So that was another big bonus point of the Titans game. And obviously around the Titans game, you had the overshadowing of what's happening with Aiyuk, what's happening with Trent Taylor. I think that kind of took it away a little bit because that's in the back of everybody's mind a little bit. But looking at the game itself, I was quite happy with the way things played out. It was obviously vanilla play calling. And what surprised me was the fact that it wasn't Shanahan at all. And he looked lost on the sidelines. He didn't look lost, but you could see he was itching. I think he was itching to call the plays. I believe it's the very first time he's never done it. So it was new for him. I think the play calling was fine. I think we ran the ball fine. I think we threw the ball fine. Again, first preseason game, there was missed tackles on the defense. There was some mixes up in scheme, in route running, but it's all to be expected from a first preseason game. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy that we got out relatively injury free. Obviously, Khalil Davis. So I'm not sure if he did that in the game or in the practice after the game, because Khalil Davis looked excellent. So it was absolutely gut-wrenching to see that news flash come up to say that he's probably going to miss the majority of this season. So we seem to have another player that's made of glass, which is unfortunate. We seem to get that quite often now. We get these stars with a load of potential, but then they very rarely see the field, because the number one the number one talent, the number one gift that you need is reliability, sustainability, to be able to get out there and actually play the game. So hopefully he does come back, because like I said, from what I saw of him, he looked excellent. I think it might have been John Chapman. I think he compared him to DJ Jones, and that's the type of player that we were missing last season when we were getting ran on all the time. So it is a blow, that one. It's understandable that Kyle's gone on after this game to basically turn around and say, look, let's cancel this joint practice because we're dropping like flies here. Because obviously Kyle's got one eye on getting to the Super Bowl, and he knows it's going to be a long slog. We maybe lose players during the season, and he needs to keep everybody as fit as possible. So what did you make of the highlights of the game if you didn't watch it live?
Go on, Gareth. I'll let you answer first, because Lee's jumped all over the place. So.
Fairly thin on the answer. I think I've picked up on a few things. I guess the sort of stuff I've been reading from some of the analysis of the game. And yeah, Dominic Pooney particularly, I think, stood out. You can kind of see if you see the same names coming up on the game reports from different people, they probably have stood out a little bit. And I think people have said that he's probably in the driving seat for starting week one, given that there's a couple of injuries. Hopefully don't have to talk about that too much at this time of the season. And Khalil Davis, yeah, again, I read one report saying he might have put it all together. He might be there for a solid place in the rotation. And then I think the next day I read a report saying he's going to miss half the season. So some guys just can't get a break. I think Ambry Thomas, I think you covered it, Lee. He was probably on the edge of the roster bubble, given how many cornerbacks we've signed. He was probably on the outside looking in. He's one of those players. He sort of seems like if he can go one way or the other in a game, he can have a really good game and then just have a couple of really terrible plays, and he seems to fall apart. And clearly, with the injury, that's probably not gonna get him onto the 53 at the beginning of the season. Whether that means we're going to put him on one of the designations and he's going to miss the entire season, or whether he's going to be waived as injured. Either way, it's not looking too good for him. Jordan Mason, shame Nadji's not here. He's his guy from last season. I think we were surprised. Again, we've talked about it. Mason didn't seem to get the role last season that we expected from his performances the season before. Maybe he is putting that together, and we are going to have somebody who can try and keep some of the mileage of CMC, which does concern me, our constant reliance on him. We'd be a very different team, I think, without him now. So that's kind of what I've picked up on. Nothing more than what Lee has already covered. But the injuries are the worst part of it. Yeah, preseason, the result doesn't matter. Team performance doesn't kind of matter. You're looking at individual performances, really. Guys who are trying to make that 53. And unfortunately, when you start having those injuries, you lose that competition. You start signing, let's face it, lesser players off the street just to start making up the numbers. And I think that means the whole quality and the standard of the teams practicing begins to drop. And that's not what we want for this season ahead. Paul, what can you add to my completely useless analysis on that?
No, it's good to get both of your thoughts. I mean, we talked about player watch when we did the pod, and I've got to be honest, Gareth, I didn't think I'd ever go into a pre-season game with one eye on a right guard and spend as much time listening to the likes of Brad Graham and John Chapman breaking down Dominic Puny, looking at the PFF grade. A few people in the chat are saying they'd be surprised if he's not starting. He's followed up his solid training camp by putting it on the game tape. I mean, we talk about Jordan Mason, Nadji's man crush. Dominic Puny helped push him over the line, and that's no pun. You watch that; that was great to see. I said to you chaps off air, I was quite surprised that the Titans played a lot of the starters. I know they've got a new head coach, but it was interesting to see them throw the kitchen sink at both Allen and Dobbs. You know, they were showing a lot of what their first choice defense will probably do, which is a surprise in preseason. Normally, it's about trying certain things or getting second and third string players into a rhythm. The injuries, as Lee's touched upon, I was going to ask you both about your thoughts, so I'll go down that rabbit hole now. At first glance, you hear we've got 26 players injured. We've cancelled the joint practices with the Saints, and you think, oh, God, we're not going to have one of those seasons where people are dropping like flies. But Kyle Shanahan has said the fact that when he first started coaching, you used to do 2-a-days. Players don't do that now. And he says sometimes that can go against you because players are well rested. They're going into each practice starting quite fast. There's a few younger players. Ricky Purcell, for example, never missed a game in college, but I think he's been taken surprised by the pace of the 49ers training camp. We like our players to be game speed ready for the start of the season. So there's a lot of hamstring strains. CMC has come out and said the calf strain wouldn't keep him out of real football, for want of a better word. So I just wanted to kind of temper the kind of panic about the injuries at the moment, Gary. If you look around the NFL, there's a lot of injuries happening. It's a contact sport. I want to say, unfortunately, it's one of the reasons we love this sport. But at the moment, I don't think we need to cite the panic stations just yet. But what do you two think about the injuries whilst we're kind of building the suspense? Because Alex Simpson, the news that you want, I'll just interrupt myself, Lee. Chargers defensive tackle Nick Williams has been signed to a 1-year deal. So I don't know whether that was what Lee was going to break, Alec, but it definitely plugs a hole with Davis being injured. So maybe I've ticked one of Lee's items off the box. But before you get the big news, let's talk about the injuries. I'll go to you firstly. Something to be worried about, buddy?
I would say no. I think we've just been unlucky that first week. So I re-watched the game after I watched it the first time, just to particularly see if I could see where Ambry Thomas got injured, and I couldn't see it. So again, I was surprised to find out that he'd broken his arm during the game. Again, Clee Davis, I think he played through the full game, so I am convinced that was a practice after the game. these things happen. I think last year and maybe the year before we were quite fortunate with injuries. We hadn't had as many as the previous years. I mean, 2021 was an absolute nightmare. What was it, 75 people we had on IR at one point or another? Something ridiculous, 75 injuries we had. And you just can't sustain that at all. If you're trying to get the championship game, trying to get the Super Bowl, you can't. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get through the next 2 to 3 weeks injury-free. And then we'll have to see what it's like once we get into the season. But I'm not particularly too worried about it. People have turned around and said, nobody's mentioned about the fact that we've changed the strength and the conditioning coach yet again. I mean, we seem to do that every single season anyway now. Obviously, we started doing it because we had all these injury problems from 2021 and 2020 as well. But then it didn't really make a difference at first. I'm not convinced it's the strength and conditioning coaches. I think it may be the way that Shanahan has them practicing. That's the only thing. That's the only common denominator I can find, because we've gone through so many different versions of strength and conditioning. The only thing it could be is the way that Shanahan has them working. And I think a few ex-players have kind of said that as well. It's a tough environment to train in when you're at the Niners, which would lead us down a rabbit hole. But I'm going to leave that until maybe a little bit later, because there's a particular player I want to talk about, and he doesn't play for the 49ers. But yeah, I'm not worried about it, Paul. How about you, Gareth?
It's not worried. Obviously, sometimes this time of year, people can lose star players for the season.
Sorry, we're just dropping the Brett information in, Gareth. Sorry to interrupt you there, buddy. You know what it's like on the live. Sorry.
That's all right. Always make time for Brett. So yeah, I'm not worried. But as I said, it's a disruption. It's that idea that you've put together this 90 player roster because you think they're the best that's available, and when they start dropping, you are clearly going to players that you don't think are quite as good. Obviously, some of them might come through and excel. We've had people come through, signed quite late to fill gaps, and ended up being important players during the season, and they've taken their chances. But it's more that disruption. It's the fact that Shanahan has always talked about how much he values the joint practices over the games, and of course we've cancelled that. So that seems to be that'll be a bit of a disturbance. And you're trying to integrate veteran players, rookies, some of these new signings, give everyone a chance. It's the disruption, I think, more than anything else, that makes me feel that preparation isn't perhaps going as we would like. Fair enough, you've always got to deal with injuries, but this year we seem to have been particularly bad for it, I guess. And it's just niggling little injuries. I mean, let's say, touch wood, it's been no one hugely important, I think, for the season ahead. And as you said with CMC, they're the sort of injuries that keep you out of training in pre-season, but don't necessarily keep you out of a game if it was needed to be done. So I'm not worried, but it is something to watch because it is a bit of a pattern. And it's how it might affect us at the beginning part of the season, and it's how it affects the competition for some of those important places, and particularly the rookies, the second and some of the third year players who are fighting for roster spots, as has happened with Ambry Thomas. It's taken that fight away from him. It's bad for him, and it's bad for the team overall, because he could have won a spot beating out somebody else. Now somebody else is going to get in.
Yeah, I mean, the injuries, one thing that we need to talk about before we move on is the IR rules and when you can put players on IR. So they've already announced Drake Jackson's done. He won't be coming back this season. And there's a lot of talk that maybe Thomas could be the same, which then means maybe he gets a shot at the roster next year. And obviously we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk, Trent Williams, contracts, money. Like you said, sometimes it's a business. Sometimes you've got to play 4D chess. Sometimes players have to be stashed. The cornerback room's looking pretty stacked. They've been competing well. So maybe Thomas has had a bit of a lucky break, for want of a better word, because maybe if he'd stayed fully healthy, he may not have been here this season. But it's something I'm not overly worried about. It's just, I know Shanahan himself tends to put a lot of stock on the joint practices. So for him to cancel it must obviously have been a big blow. And I know they're not looking to arrange them against the Raiders next week. They're saying the turnaround's too short. He did clarify his comments at the press conference by saying he hasn't always done joint practices. When he was at Washington, when he was at Houston, they didn't always do them. But I think it's something we've got used to as 49ers fans, because Kyle himself talks about the importance of them. So, and I don't know if you saw, chaps, Luke Walsh has put there a few messages that Brandon Aiyuk in his red t-shirt, black pants, and he has a blue water bottle in his hands. Now, the eagle-eyed out there are asking, what does the blue water bottle mean? Because we look for anything on this show. Sorry, I just had to get that in there. Go on, Lee. Any Aiyuk thoughts at this stage?
Yes, fair enough. Let's talk about Aiyuk now. Okay. So, I like the idea of a three-way trade if he's going to go, and I like the idea of well, there we go, Neil J. I like the idea of that three-way trade involving Devontae Adams. Now, I don't know if you've watched Receiver. I'm only up to episode 4, I believe. The next episode is the one where we go into Philly and beat them up a little bit. So the first couple of episodes, Devontae Adams really impressed me with the way the way he spoke, his motivations. And then I can't remember if it was the third or the fourth episode. It was all about him. I don't care if we win or lose. It's about my stats. And I thought that seems a little bit wayward, because it didn't marry up to how he came over in the first two episodes. And I don't think it is him. I don't think he is all about the stats. I think it was just born out of frustration. He made some comments vaguely veiled, thinly veiled about Jimmy Garoppolo. That stood out a mile. He obviously does not like Jimmy Garoppolo. He thought he was poor quarterback. But I like what I saw. I like the way he came on in the first 2 episodes, and he's all about winning a ring. I think that's what he wants to do. I think he'll take a team-friendly deal. I think if the Raiders turned around to him tomorrow and said the 49ers want to trade for you, but they want you to restructure a contract, I think he would turn around and say, yeah, do it, because that's my best chance of getting a ring. So if we are going to lose Aiyuk, then I really hope that it is a 3-way trade like that. We bring somebody in like Devontae Adams. I'm trying to think of who else was mentioned from a wide receiver perspective. Somebody that's already played for Kyle, but it didn't particularly fill me full of confidence that if we get rid of Aiyuk and bring this guy in, that he's going to fill Aiyuk's shoes. So for me, if it's going to happen, I think we need to do something to try and bring Devontae Adams in, whether that be via a 3-way trade or once we get the draft picks off Seattle Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers, then we go to the Raiders and try and get Devontae Adams in. That's my view of the whole Aiyuk thing. If he's going to go, he's going to go. We can't do anything about that. I think it's been well documented that Shanahan is starting to lose a bit of patience. He doesn't like the way this is dragged out. Even though Shanahan's a young coach, I think he's much like us. We don't like to see it played out on social media. We think it's quite childish. So I think there's going to come a point where it tips. And that might have been last night. I mean, we all saw what the GOAT tweeted out. Big news coming tomorrow. And apparently they gave him...
You didn't tweet that last night. Offer. You tweeted that this morning, Lee. The GOAT tweeted that this morning.
So, yeah, apparently they've upgraded the contract. They've improved the contract offered to Brandon Aiyuk, but it's still nowhere near what the Steelers have offered. But the feeling I get from the reports, it could be a little bit guaranteed money, extra guaranteed money he wants, and that's it. But overall, he was happy with it. So I am kind of expecting Aiyuk to announce that he signed for the signed a contract extension with the 49ers sometime today. But if he doesn't, I don't care. I will support any player on the 49ers team. If it's not Aiyuk, it's a different wide receiver. I don't care who it is. As long as they're there to win Super Bowls. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I think it's dragged on long enough. I said, I think some months ago, this felt a little bit different in that we were never going to trade Bosa. We were never going to trade Fred Warner. I don't think we were ever going to trade Debo. This always felt a little bit different. And the fact that we've had trade deals in place, if you believe the rumours, is obviously quite different, that we've actually gone through and entertained discussions with other teams about putting a trade deal, a trade framework in place. So it's always felt slightly different. I think to me, it seems that I wanted the third option that he didn't have. He wanted the money that other teams were offering, but he clearly wanted to stay in San Francisco. And it's been a don't, who's going to blink first? I don't want to leave, but I don't want to sign for that money. And I think he's just been caught in that. And ultimately, it's just now, come on, you've got to make a decision. Because if you're going to play this season, you've got to start practicing. Not to say that in any way I assume he's going to have let himself go over the off season, but it's not the same as practicing. Standing on the sidelines with his blue bottle is not the same as getting into contact. I would like him to stay, but I would like him to stay at the right price. I think this is, if we buckle to all of the demands going forward, we're going to have difficulty because of a number of high earners we've got now. There's Trent Williams that clearly we can't sort out until I think we know what we're doing with Aiyuk. I haven't been able to find the time to watch receiver yet, but I'm not interested in Devontae Adams in the slightest. He does not strike me as the player who is going to throw the blocks in for the others, the way that Debo and Aiyuk and Jennings and CMC and Kittle all block for each other. My possibly completely unfounded impression of him is that he's going to want the catches and everyone to be blocking for him, and he'll be very happy with that. As soon as somebody else is getting the catches and he's asked to block, I don't know that he's that kind of player. I don't know how much of that he's been asked to do in the past. I think that one of the other names that was mentioned, certainly on something I read, totally speculatively, was Cortland Sutton in the three-way with Denver. And I don't know. It's another receiver to come and fill the gap. I think we need that. He's decent, but it's not necessarily that exciting. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if anything does happen, or we hear anything with Pittsburgh about whether a player was involved. Because obviously we had a Amari Cooper in the Browns part of the deal, which didn't go through. I don't know that Pittsburgh have particularly got anyone on the offensive side of the ball that we'd want, but maybe defensive. And that's maybe, it would be interesting to see what that trade framework was.
I believe it wasn't a player, Gareth. Just
really?
while you're talking there, I believe there was no player mentioned in the framework. Sorry, thought I'd throw that in there so you could.
If you're the man in the know, then. So I don't know where it would leave us if he went. I think we would potentially look to trade for somebody potentially at some point in the season. I think perhaps not now. We would try and get through with the receiving corps we've got now, and maybe see if we can poach somebody off a team whose season isn't going the way they want, and suddenly players become available. Because right now I can't really think of a receiver who I would like who might be available. And it potentially could be tight end rather than a wide receiver, because I think we are still struggling for depth at that position. So who knows? I would prefer Aiyuk to stay, but ultimately now I'm a bit sick of it, and I prefer him just to make a decision one way or the other.
So to be fair to Lee, we are talking about the colour of water bottles because the girls bought me a Faithful to the Bay water bottle for my birthday. Now that's not the breaking news, everybody. Before Lee, there's people in the chat who are panicking. So those people who've asked if you've missed the news, no news is broken yet. Sorry, El Presidente. Back over to you, buddy. I'm just calming the crowd down.
The first bit will be getting broken very shortly indeed. To be fair to Devontae Adams, I mean, he took some big hits when you're watching receiver, and at one point he was complaining about the big hits, and it's not surprising because he kept on getting hospital passes from Jimmy Garoppolo. Some of them could have ended his career.
That does ring a bell, actually.
I know.
Some of those together.
Yeah, some of those throws, but he does look as though he's a tough player. I mean, he did play through quite a bad injury, which probably has affected his performance.
I think they're all tough. It's whether they're
Yeah.
prepared to put in that 30 game. As we've seen, occasionally we'll have the game where Aiyuk could get 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. The next he'll get 3 targets because he's blocking all game, and it'll be Debo or CMC or Kittle. And we've seen how that goes in a game. Kittle will have 120 yards and then 20 yards in the next 3 games. Will Devontae Adams be happy with that? I'm not convinced.
Yeah. I mean, you make a fair point. He would have to come with the expectation that
very
he's
few
not
wide
always going to get
receivers
the
would
ball.
be. I think
Yeah.
there is something about wide receivers and their contracts, and they are a little bit on the diva side. Let's face it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just comes with the territory. Oh, I'm going to shut up now.
Okay, so the first bit of news, it's quite disappointing, actually. It's quite disappointing. So the first bit of news is we have been unsuccessful with our application for the gold mine for the Chiefs game. Now, I did respond to the email about this to ask whether or not I'm allowed to communicate the second piece of information. And in nowhere in the email does it say it's confidential. There is part of the email that are confidential, but not that part. So I'm going to break this anyway and call it an exclusive because I've never seen it anywhere else. So, yeah, the gold mine, unfortunately, has been discontinued. So last year, the Bucks game was the last chance the 49ers for UK had to go to the, well, it's not because some of the guys went to the playoffs, but you know what I mean, as an organised trip. So they've discontinued it. No idea why. That hasn't been communicated. Any guesses I make is pure speculation. I can think of several reasons why they would do this. And I think I said last year before we started doing the gold mine preparation, I had a feeling that it could be the last time you have the opportunity to do this, which is why I made a point of saying to quite a few people, you know what, this might not come back next year. Oh, and Ty Olsen can confirm the gold mine has been discontinued. I'd like to know where you heard it from, Ty, because I've been on the gold mine, not the gold mine website, the fan chapter website where the gold mine stuff is, and it doesn't mention anything in there. But yeah, if you read about why the gold mine was started in the first place, it was supposed to be a 2-year trial, and it started in 2019. So obviously COVID hit in 2020, so there's a big break. And then they've run it for another 3 seasons rather than the 2 seasons. And I think either one, they've achieved their aim, which is this is going to upset a lot of Santa Clara-based 49er fans, but they've achieved the aim in they've actually taught the fans when to make noise and when to shut up. Because one of the things I'd noticed previous years before the gold mine, there's a lot of fans around where I used to sit in different areas around the stadium that would be making noise when the offense were on the field. And me and David Ellicott from the UK looking at each other thinking, I wish they'd shut up. Did they not realise they're supposed to be quiet at this point? So it was either an educational thing, let's teach our fans when to make noise and when to be quiet, or they wanted to try and bring that noise from the Alabama-Auburn game and try and get it as loud as possible. And to be honest, I think they've probably done such a good job at that, or Nick Clark has done such a good job, because let's face it, this was Nick's baby. He was excellent in what he did when he was senior manager fan engagement, which is his correct title. I think now you go into the game and Levi Stadium, you'll hear the noise when you should hear the noise, and it'll be quiet when it needs to be quiet. I don't think it's financial. I can't believe that for 1 second, because when I've sat down, tried to work out the figures, estimated it'll probably cost them about $120,000 a year. And in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing, that's peanuts. So I can't see it being a financial reason. I just think that they've met the objective of what they wanted to do, and now they want to move forward with something else. But they haven't said what that something else is. So yeah, unfortunately, there's going to be no gold mine game this year. They have turned around and asked how many was planning to come out for the Chiefs game, and they're going to see what they can do for us. So if people are still wanting to go to the Chiefs game, even though they can't get into the gold mine, then I'm still liaising with the 49ers to find out what they can do for us, and whether or not that's an on-field pass at the end, discounted tickets, don't know. No idea. They haven't given us any clue about that. But unfortunately, that's the first bit of breaking news. So what I was going to say before I made that was, if you'd ever listened to season 1 of the podcast, this is after we brought it back. So we had 4 seasons back in the early 2010, 2011, 12, 13. And then there was a break for a year and then came back in 2015. Now, 2015, 2017, had you listened to that first season, it was me and Brian Davis who hosted the show. And what we used to always like to do is start with the negatives and then leave you with a positive. So, as I said prior, there's more than one piece of news I'm breaking today. That's the negative one. So the next one, hopefully, will have a lot of people smiling. But we'll leave that until later in the show.
I was going to say, Lee, what I need to do is I need to remove this breaking news. Now, everybody at home is going to groan, but we have a fantastic partner, and we've reached that time in the show where we need to tell everybody about Power Brand Systems. Power Brand Systems empowers creators and businesses to build their brand, attract an audience, and grow through effective systems and software solutions. So sit back and listen for the next 44 seconds.
Ready to generate more leads from your website, Google, and your social channels without having to spend money on ads? Our platform provides you with an easy-to-use communication stream that sucks in free leads from your website, Google, Facebook, and Instagram, enabling you to reply and convert them into customers from your computer or from our mobile app. We'll even turn your inbound calls into text message conversations, so you'll never miss another lead again. Once you've converted a satisfied customer, you can shoot them a Google review request with a click of a button, which will explode your positive reviews and increase your position in search engines. The system will also pull new reviews from Google and Facebook right into your conversation stream, where you can read and reply. Jumpstart your business by getting started today.
Now, a few people seem to be feeling frustrated. Now, if you've ever watched the 49er Faithful UK live, there was no chance that we were breaking the news too early. Now, a few people are asking in the chat, Lee, so whether we should give them a couple of minutes to get their predictions in there. Now, I'll share the first one because Michael has put there that he believes the news is a London meetup. But whilst the chat's gathering their breath, one topic I did want us to talk about was the kickoffs, because we did touch upon that in our pod a couple of weeks ago, and Alex Simpson, special teams expert in the house, he posed a question there. But kickoff looked a mess and injuries were the only big negatives. Other than them, happy for the first preseason. What did you make of the kickoffs, Gareth? Because I've got my own thoughts, but what did you make of the kickoffs? I know you haven't watched the game as such, but have you caught up on the news? Have you read any articles to give you an informed opinion?
Messy everywhere. I certainly think, obviously, the Niners had a little bit of a struggle on the coverage. It's going to be a learning curve for everybody, and that includes the officials as well, because it's going to be something new for everybody. It's going to be exciting and possibly frustrating, I think, in equal measure. But we've only got these preseason games to kind of iron it out. So special teams coaches are going to earn their bucks this year, that's for sure, in a way perhaps that they haven't had to earn them in previous years. It is something I should have checked up on, been a bit busy, but I haven't had a chance to really dig into it. And I think we're not going to see much in preseason. I don't know that we're going to see much in the first half of the season. I think it's going to be safety first for everybody. I do think, probably not us, but I do think there are a couple of coaches out there who might try something a bit wacky early, just because they like taking the risks. Maybe you might see something interesting from Detroit, for example, who I think we know the coach is a gambling man. So yeah, let's see how it shakes out. But yeah, a lot of work I think still needs to be done. And I think at the moment, probably safety first, and try and make sure that you can get the basics and get the unit operating correctly without penalties, because I'm not sure how the penalties are going to work, what's going to happen with yardage adding to returns. and things like that. If that's another sort of 10 yards on the return for jumping too early when the ball's in the air, that sort of thing, that could end up being a significant factor in games, particularly giving your opponents a short field kick-off at the end of the first half in particular. Suddenly 2 runs and a pass and you're in field goal range from a decent kickoff. So, that's going to win or lose you games. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Look, we're talking about kickoffs. Who would have thought that this time last season? So they're doing something right.
I mean, to be fair, the reason I asked is you've got to remember special teams were taken away because a lot of the special teams players were playing at wide receiver or they were playing other positions. I know Mitch might be a big factor in special teams because you need your kicker to be able to tackle, but I believe he was carrying a knock. So that's why Jake Moody was on the kickoffs. And there's talk, Gareth, that maybe Debo in the big games will be the number 1 receiver with Juice in front of him as the blocker. As we've seen over the weekend, there's been some big gains. I think the Titans had about 60, 70 yards on us on one. They didn't convert it, but equally, special teams is a bit of a worry. But to give the special teams coach a bit of a hall pass, for want of a better word, he didn't have his first choice special teams out there. And I think you're seeing the difference between second and third string versus first string. What did you make of the kickoffs, Lee? Because we've got nothing else to talk about at the moment, so we might as well keep the special teams talk going.
Yeah, so I thought the special teams didn't look particularly good on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning. But again, it's preseason game 1. This is a new kickoff. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get used to it. Some teams have picked it up straight away, have a good strategy. Ours didn't look that great. But it's just a case of let's practice it. Let's find out what we can do. I thought it was very underwhelming when both Trent Taylor and who else was back there with him? It was
Ronnie
Trent
Bell.
Taylor. It might have been Ronnie Bell.
Ronnie Bell was out a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, and they just ran into a brick wall at the 25-yard line. I mean, the thing is, we still get to the 25-yard line. So, I mean, that's pretty much all we got to last season anyway. So it's not going to make that much of a difference. It's more how we defend that, because we didn't defend it that well against the Titans. They did have some big runs through there on kickoffs. So yeah, we need to improve, definitely. And I think we will, because I mean last season special teams we were much improved over the previous seasons. And I think it's just getting the right strategy for how it is. And obviously, if you remember, there was none of the first team playing at all at the weekend, and I would imagine some of the key players outside of the first team. I'm trying to think who played on the night, because there was that many new names and numbers. I literally sat there with the roster sheet in my hand, thinking, right, who's that? I imagine, yeah, once we get the proper first team playing, then it'll look better.
So before I hand over to Lee for any more news, I do have something of my own that I would like to share. So you may have noticed that last week I was invited by CBS Bay Area with a little over 400,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel. I had to keep this top secret, so I had a little bit of Lee Gowland in me last week. So I was invited on with 3 other 49ers fans, and I was able to talk all things 49ers for about half an hour, and it was a blast. And I just wanted to share that bit of news. It's on their YouTube channel. I've had some good feedback, and I wouldn't be able to do things like that without people like you watching and the support of Lee, Gareth, and Nadji. So I just wanted to share that news whilst we tease everybody else. Anything else you want to tell the good people, Lee? Or is it a bit too soon?
You were good on that, Paul. I watched that. It didn't require any subtitles or anything. So yeah.
Thank you, Gareth.
It was very good. Yeah, it was very good. I enjoyed it. So I'm going to explain a little bit, because everybody knows what
Rabbit
I like.
hole.
I like to string things out, get people watching as long as possible. It's all about the figures. It's all about the figures. This time it's slightly different. The reason I wanted to leave it as late as possible for this piece of news is because I was kind of hoping to get a reply from the email I sent at midnight last night, because I was asking for a little bit more information. But I did say to them I needed to let people know as soon as possible. So there will be a watch party in the UK. It will be week 2 against the Vikings. It'll be in London. Now, that came as a little bit of a surprise. Not because it was London rather than Leeds. Had it been Leeds, it would have come as a surprise. The reason it came as a surprise is I actually thought they were going to go to a completely different city. There was 2 cities mentioned to me, which I'm not going to say who those cities are. They might use them in the future and want to keep it quiet. But yeah, so they're going to go back to London, which, to be honest, I think with it not being an international series weekend, it'll give a lot more 49er fans who don't go to those games a chance to come to an official watch party. The information I don't have is the actual venue, and that's what I was waiting on, and that's why I was trying to leave it as long as possible, hoping that they might reply to us and tell us which venue it is. Because I've made an assumption it's going to be one or 2 venues. The venue that we used last year, or the sister venue, the overflow venue, which was actually bigger than the venue we had, purely because it was a good venue. It was a reasonably good venue. I think the overflow was better than the actual venue we had, which was split between 2 floors. But yeah, so the weekend of the 15th, is that right? 15th,
It is,
yeah.
15th. You need Monday the 16th
In London.
off work.
Yeah. In London, an official watch party for the 49ers for the Vikings game. So that is definitely on. Just don't know where.
Yeah, so that's
as I always say, though, Paul, don't I? As I always say, as soon as I find out, I will let you know. It just so happens that because I didn't get until midnight last night and we were on the live tonight, I thought, well, another 8 hours isn't going to make that much of a difference and we can break it live on this show. So, yeah.
No. What you're failing to tell people, I woke up this morning to an unsent message at 5 past midnight from Lee Gowland, and I thought, what on earth have I done with the thumbnail? And then he teased he had this information to break, and I thought, if I'd only been awake at midnight, Ty, I would have known the news.
You were awake. You were online. You were active.
I wasn't on social media, though. I was probably doing something on my phone. Tracy was probably telling me to put my phone down and go to sleep. But Lee, you have done a sterling job of keeping that under your hat today. Me and Nadji definitely try to break you in the group chat. And I'm sure, like me,
you're not the only ones.
Lots of messages. Because I had people messaging me saying, our mate, you must know. And I was like, honestly, lads, he isn't telling anybody. And then people were messaging me and saying, yeah, you're right. We've messaged Lee. And he said, not even you know. And I was like, if even I don't know, he isn't telling anybody.
Yeah, it's because I'd rather have the live reaction, the real reaction on the actual live. I think that's better. By the way, there is. I do have more information, but I'm not allowed to tell you. And all I'll say is, you really need to be at this London meetup. That's all I can say. You really need to be at that London meetup.
You're already causing division. So Kim has put that the Danish group has a watch party the same weekend, but Bo is coming to London, baby. So I know the Irish faithful have a watch party the same weekend. And to be fair, we did believe it was going to be this weekend with it being a 6 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah,
so...
I mean, to be fair, so I only give out information when the organisation tells me he can give out this information. So week 2, we have known a while that was the preferred week for a watch party, but it was never guaranteed. I said that was the weekend we'd like to do it. We do have another date in mind, but that's the weekend we'd like to do it. What are your thoughts on that? So obviously I've known that for a while, but then I've seen the Danish guys, because I saw they had a meetup organised. I saw the Irish guys, so they had a meetup organised. And I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because I couldn't give up that confidence the organisation have that I won't give out information too early. And that's why I couldn't really say anything. But I did try to hint. I give the most obvious hints ever in previous shows. I did say if I was a betting man, it's going to be week 2. And these are my reasons for thinking it's going to be week 2. So if you're new to the show, and you're going to continue watching the show, listen to what I say, because I will try and give you the least subtle hint ever about what's happening, but I won't tell you outright until I'm allowed to tell you outright.
Well, Collins took a big punt before I hand over to Gareth. So Collins put, we've had Joe Nedney, we've had Joe Staley, now there's Joe Montana. Now, a few people have obviously been waiting for this announcement, and I've seen a couple in the chat saying they can't make London, Gareth. There will be the Chiefs watch-along in Newcastle, as Gary has mentioned there. So that's going from strength to strength. But Gareth, London, baby, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts were excitement. Quick look on the phone, and I've seen the dreaded words "rail replacement bus" on Sunday for my particular journey. So that's slightly knocked that down. But I'm pretty sure I will be there. I will have to obviously check my work calendar, but I don't think I'll have anything that important in by then. So I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, it'll be good if we know where it is. London is relatively large place and quite a lot of options in where to stay. And obviously it's good if, certainly for me, if I can stay fairly close to the venue, is useful. But there we go. I'm excited. Watch party, always good to get the UK faithful together. I think every watch party we've managed to increase numbers. Not sure we'll increase what was at Leeds for the Super Bowl meetup. But I think we'll probably top the last watch party. I hope so.
I'm not entirely sure because the last watch party, I think we had more there than in Leeds for the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl topped out at,
of course, it was London with Joe Staley.
the Browns
game. And I wasn't there.
Yeah. So I think we worked out that the venue we were at, the main venue, was 350 people, and that maxed out. And we think there's at least another 75 to 100 people who were sent to the overflow. And then that maxed out.
The overflow definitely maxed out. So Mark Mavers has booked his hotel. That was one thing that I was nervous about when Lee was teasing the announcement for the watch party. Was we'll be doing this live, and all the trains, all the air flights, all the hotels will be booked. But as Gareth said, London is rather big. It makes sense for them to go down south. A few people were worried about the Leeds connection, Lee, which you'd said on previous shows. You can understand why they use Leeds, but obviously with the fact that there's no international series game that weekend in London, it'll be good.
So interestingly, Paul, I mean, obviously, I went straight on last night. As soon as I read the email, right, let's have a look at the trains. It works out almost the same price to actually go down on the Saturday and stay an extra night. For some reason, the train was quite expensive to go down on the Sunday and then back on the Monday. So then I worked out, well, what if I go down on the Saturday and come back on the Monday and add an extra night? And I think it worked out an extra £15, £20 more. And for that, I think I'll go down on the Saturday. So I imagine there's going to be quite a few people in the thread, quite a few people in the group who do that as well. Make a weekend of it. I mean, why not? You may as well. So yeah, if you do that, we'll try and arrange something for the Saturday night and meet up for the Saturday night.
So what we'll
just sit and talk.
Yeah, what we'll do, Lee, we'll create an event page on the Facebook group. So if you're not part of the 49er Faithful UK group on Facebook, and you are on Facebook, I'd advocate you to join because we always create an event page. I think I've seen something flash up my phone of Sarah in the admin chat where she's saying once hotels are booked, it would be good to put a list up. So like last time, there'd be people who don't want to travel in London on their own. So I think at the last hotel, there was me, Nick, Sarah, a couple of others who travelled from the hotel to the venue. But the news we were all waiting for, a 49er Faithful UK watch party, week 2.
And the Gowland Bowl.
And the Gowland Bowl, yeah. Ho ho. But is your brother going to be coming to this, or is he going to the game? Is he going to Minnesota?
So he's not going to Minnesota because both our Steve and our Ben, I believe they've already booked up for the Chiefs game. So they were going to go to the Chiefs game regardless of the gold mine. Obviously, our Steve couldn't get into the gold mine anyway with him being a Vikings fan. And the reason they wanted to go to that game is because they can do the back-to-back double header. So you get the Chiefs one weekend, you get the Cowboys the next, and then smack bang in the middle of the week on the Thursday night football, they're going to fly down to LA and watch the Rams-Vikings. So it works perfect for him. And to be honest, if I can get a job between now and start to the middle of September, I will still be going off for those that week as well. So fingers crossed.
So Ty Alston has put there, what former 49ers player will attend the meetup? Stay tuned to the 49er Faithful UK podcast to find out. I know Red Jet Shell our favourite from across the pond, will be in the house for the Chiefs game. So I know Martin is definitely going. And I know there's a few others in the group who've reached out and said they were going regardless, like you said, Lee. So we'll have to arrange for Red Jet to welcome the UK faithful. Get a photo. We'll get that whacked on Instagram for you, Red Jet Shell, because I know you're not on X and you're not on Facebook. But Lee, this has been worth the wait, buddy. I think the people are happy. You've done well,
Well,
buddy.
all the people, apart from those that wanted to go to the gold mine, obviously. I mean, that was a huge blow, which I didn't expect.
It was. I mean, again, you always tell people to listen. I'm one of those people, which Lee reached out to last year and said, look, you may not get this opportunity again. This may be your one true once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And like you said, Lee, we didn't know Nick Clark was going to get promoted. And obviously, now that they've disbanded it, we're kind of in that special category of people who've attended the game at the gold mine. And I think Gary put a comment on the thread earlier saying maybe they're going to put permanent seating there to increase capacity for the Super Bowl that they're hosting or for the World Cup, or maybe there's some reason. But it is a bit of a shame that they're not continuing the gold mine.
Yeah.
So, anything else, chaps? Because we've been going for 56 minutes. Anything else, Gareth?
It'd be interesting though why they felt the gold mine. Hopefully they felt it was a success, and as you've said, maybe it's done its job rather than it being not a success and not worth continuing with. So, and that would be useful because I certainly think from us it was successful. And I think, as you said, Lee, if it cost about $120,000 a year, I think we spend that in the shop on our gold mine trips. So, you know, you can't be that bad.
It at the bar. Or Brett Sinclair spent it at the bar because apparently he was buying me drinks all day.
So,
Space Dust.
On that
$32
note,
a can.
Gareth, digressing. Ty Alston, that's what I needed to remember. Huge thank you. Ty Alston was flying the 49er Faithful UK flag in Tennessee. We always say, if you're at a game and you've got a flag, definitely take a photo, tag us on social media. The 49er Faithful UK is the community. Anybody who's going to a game, hit me up on social media and I'll share that post. But Ty, I know you like to fly the flag, buddy. It was great to have you on the live a couple of weeks ago. We will definitely be getting Ty back on. If you're not following Ty on social media, please do go and follow him. He's a great follow on there. And yes, Lee, we want to see those flags flying. Every game would be pretty spectacular if we could do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else from you, Lee?
I don't think so. Like I said, as soon as I get more details about London, I'll let you know. And all I can say from the details I do know and I can't tell you is you need to be at that meetup. You need to be at that meetup. Well, it's going to be epic. You're going to love it.
Brett Sinclair has already checked. The flights to London from Scotland are affordable, is what I think he means. Sometimes you never know with Brett. There might be a dad joke in there that I'm missing. But chaps,
I think he's going on a bird. Cheap.
Oh, dearie me. So as we said, we will be back with either a live or a pod. We're still not quite in full season mode. We are missing Najee Karar, who I'm sure is eagerly awaiting a message from somebody to tell him what the breaking news was. Thank you for joining me, Lee. Thank you for joining me, Gareth. I've had a blast as always.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Do turn on those notifications. Do hit up on social media. Drop us a like, a subscribe, all the good stuff. And until next time, faithful, stay safe and go Niners.
Go Niners.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in our heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, G. Clark, Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going